death. But shortly thereafter, the Georgetown Chambers of Commerce and Industry issued a press release, and it was clear they were referring to that. It was clear that they were referring to the death of Mr. Sam, and they issued a statement which I think it's important for us to read, because the police will have one story. They continue to tell us that crime is done, even though the last time they released, they indicated that murders were up by 32%, and traffic accident was up by a large number as well. But yet they tell you that the crime is serious crimes are done. I don't know who they're fooling, but here what they in a long statement, so I think I should read it to you. They issued a statement on the 4th of August. The full statement says, the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce and Industry, GCCI, notes with intense concern the level of crime being perpetrated in Guyana, more particularly in recent times. While the Guyana Police Force has posited that their official crime statistics indicate a decline in crime, the GCCI view this as not reflecting the reality of the prevailing circumstances. Rather, and alarmingly so, the GCCI view the decline in official statistics as demonstrative of a loss in confidence in the Guyana Police Force and reflective on an underreporting of criminal perpetration. Thus, the Chamber of Commerce calls on the Guyana Police Force to adjust its lax posture on crime and echoes the sentiment recently expressed by the Honorable Minister of Home Affairs to clamp down on the lawless malaise existing in daily life. Then they go on to say lawlessness creates the condition under which crime flourishes. The GCCI remains extremely concerned that should criminal acts continue unabated, that a conducive environment for doing business in Guyana will begin to erode and loss or bodily harm of Guyana's most valuable resources, its people, will be damaging to our prospects for economic development. That's the statement from the GCCI. And I am saying, as we have said before, that you cannot believe the police statistics because they ghost in the figures. And those of us who live in the country know the fear of being victimized by criminal elements. We know it's there. And there's another statement too. Is where let me pull it before I bring in Mr. Conway. Starbrook News had an editorial a few days ago, right? They had an editorial and they spoke about the situation and the response to. Let me read just a little part. They said that let me read what they said. They said they're claiming that a gentleman, a former president of the chambers, who was also skating in his remarks about the crime situation, mentioning a migrant from Venezuela who was killed by bicycle bandits. And they said they reported that recently. He's saying that while saying the police have recorded a decline in crime, the residents of Lamar Gardens complained to the top cop that they can't walk day or night. And then this man quoted the commissioner response as saying, that is the man who sits in the chair, as saying, stats show differently. Well, stats show different. And we have to accept that we will be subject to depressed communities. And hear what Starbrook News went on to say. If that is really how he responded, referring to the man who sits in the chair, then there is some basis for Mr. Stocker's comment that there was a need for a change in the leadership of the Guyana Police Force. We're going to talk about that leadership thing a little later. Mr. Conway, I'm sure you would have seen the GCCI statement. I'm sure you would have seen what the remarks after Mr. Sam's killing. And again, we come back to the figures. They are saying that these figures are their figures are reflective of crime being under control. Where they live? Where do people live, Mr. Conway?
That is not reality, That is not reality. And they ghosting. They cocking the stats. And the stats are not a true reflection of the crime situation in the country. Paul dealing with 11 crimes. And those were crimes identified by Larry Lewis over 30 years ago. And let me list them: murder, robbery, robbery under arms, robbery where other instruments are used, robbery with aggravation, robbery with violence, larceny from the person, rape, burglary, kidnapping. And in their list, robbery has taken up five. You got robbery, robbery under arms, robbery where other instruments used, robbery with aggravation, robbery with violence. So offenses under the Sexual Offences Act, apart from rape, are not considered serious crime. Domestic violence, not considered serious crime. Unlawful unlawful possession of firearm, not considered serious crime. Manslaughter, not considered serious crime. Dangerous drugs, not considered serious crime. Trafficking in person, not considered serious crime. Felonious wounding, not considered serious crime. Cyber crimes not considered as serious crime. So they have their own category that they are using and misleading this nation that crime is under control. Crime and the fear of crime is prevalent in this country, and the crime rate is extremely high. They're saying, hey, that crime is down, but the capital offense, murder, is up by 30 something percent. And they have seized more firearms during the year, illegal firearm, than they did last year. And if you compare it with last year is still extremely high. So low crime rate doesn't mean that the police is efficient and effective. High arrest rate does not necessarily show that the police are doing a good job. A high ratio of police officers to citizens does not necessarily mean the high quality police service. Responding quickly to service doesn't necessarily mean that the police doing a good job. What they're doing, they are tabulating events of certain crimes, tabulating events, but that does not mean to say that the police are efficient and effective. What they need to know, what they need to do is to go to their mandate, what the law says, and I'm going to read what the law says about the police, the role of the police. Section 3.2 of the Police Act, Chapter 1601. Here is what the police has to do. The poor shall be employed for the prevention and detection of crime, the preservation of law and order, the preservation of the peace, the repression of internal disturbances, the protection of property, the apprehension of offenders, and the due enforcement of all laws and regulations which it is directly charged, and shall perform such military duties in Guyana as may be required with under the authority of the minister. So that is the role the police has got to play, and it's laid down in law. And how do you know whether or not they're doing it? Go to the community, go to the public, and find out how well you are doing. Do as I always said, do citizen survey. Find out from the citizens how well you are doing. Look at their mission statement, and they changed their mission statement recently, and it's perhaps is more confidential than the last report. They change their mission statement, and they're not achieving what is laid down in law. They're not achieving their mission. All they're doing is tabulating events with the intention. They look at percentage increase and percentage decrease. They need to go deeper than that. I remember years ago, while we had the citizen security program was on, they had established what we call the ICIS. We call it ISIS. We said we had ISIS in Guyana, Integrated Crime Information System, where the information was sent to the Ministry of Affairs, and where they had some persons who were there doing an analysis. The thing is that we should have had a real-time analysis of what is happening in the crime scene. But I don't know what happened with that ICIS. It had reached a stage where we used to have monthly reports, and where the Home Affairs was giving us medicinally by bits and pieces. I had said and I had maintained that the control of that ICS should reside with the police and not the Ministry of Home Affairs. and I think that's where it is, that they need to do deeper analysis. They need to look at trends. They need to look at pattern. Ask yourself, is this a series? Is this a spree? Where are the hot spots? And they need to use the data to inform, to make proper decisions. What are they doing? Oh, we had 12 murder last year, we get 16 this year, or we getting this. That is not proper policing. And there's something we call polycrime triangle: the victim, the suspect, and the locations. Most of the effort is spent on the victim and the suspect, while the location is left untouched. And the location is where things are happening. When you do a bit of management, strategic management, they tell you there is where something you call the pistol. Things happen politically, economically, socially, technologically, legally, and environmentally. And those things are mitigating against crime. And there's where the role of the police comes in, where there's a model in crime called COPS, community oriented policing and problem solving, where the police has got to get involved in the community with not only solving crime, but solving problems in the community. We call it COPS, community oriented policing and problem solving. The last man who was doing a lot of good work was Senior Superintendent Stephen Mansell. And since Mansell left as commander, I can't recall any other commander do those kind of things. You got to involve the community in not only solving crime, but also problems. And there is where you have to look at the pistol, things that happen politically, economically, socially, technologically, legally, and environment that is affecting crime, that is mitigating against crime. And that's where you got to look at, not just a percentage increase and percentage decrease. Not just tabulating things. They got to go deeper and deeper and do broader and deeper analysis of the crime situation if we want to reduce crime. Otherwise, so that we end up in the same boat all the time.
Well, as I say, if you keep doing the same thing and expect to get different results, you're a madman. And let me say this: when we talk about the crimes, they talk about murder. And Stabrook Hughes made the point that perhaps it's time they, instead of having a category murder, they should have a category that is called homicide, because homicide is more wide ranging. Because when you talk about murder, what happened to all those manslaughter cases? What happened to all those manslaughter cases? We know that a large number of cases where murder is charged, when they get to the court, people are convicted for manslaughter. How is that recorded? And the next thing when they talk about clear up rate, and I have said this all along, you clear for the police, for the people in the Guyana police force, the senior people I'm referring to in particular, clear up to them is once a person is arrested. Once a person is arrested, they say, well, the crime is solved. But then we know that a lot of the people who are arrested walk free. They walk free. So at the end of the day, they don't look at conviction, which is a very important metric in this whole thing. You got to talk about conviction. The judge on the CCJ, Justice Whip, not so long ago remarked that in Guyana, you have a lot of cases before the court that are thrown out following no case submissions. It simply means that they are saying it cleared up, but when it gets to the magistrate, it can't go in any further because there's no prima facie case and the matters go overboard. So they have to look at this thing very holistically. And I made the comment a while ago, and I read the statement from GCCI. Some people might not know who the GCCI represent, but the GCCI is the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and they represent, according to the information on the website, over 700 businesses in Georgetown. Over 700, and they talk about 40 categories, ranging from services, shipping, real estate, security, marketing, all of those things, healthcare and industry. So the Georgetown Chamber of Commerce has a very wide coverage. So when they speak, they're speaking on behalf of a lot of people, most of the businesses in Georgetown, and they're saying that notwithstanding what the police are trying to tell us about crime being done, that is not the reality. And again, in the article from the editorial from Stabrook News, identified some of them. And if you recall, you get a paper shot killing, couple hundred, 100 or 200 yards from the official residence of the president. People shoot down a man with an assault rifle. Can't be solved up to now. You have, if I recall correctly, you had a man around Christmas time whose throat was slit in Regent Street, in busy Regent Street. Somebody walk up to you, slit his throat. And that's the man who they said was involved in, or alleged to be involved in some thieving of some big set of gold. I think it was $400 million worth of gold that cut it through. We had a man in Diamond not so long ago, lay down at home. Two men roll up in a car, ask see, the wife said he was not home. They barge into the home, they shot and kill him. Then we had a man on Dorman Street, I think Dorman Street it was. Some man doing contract or cleaning drain or something. People roll up, shot him dead. Then a man sitting, this was, I think they said a Brazilian national, sitting in a pickup in Regent Street some time ago. People roll up with an AK-47 or some similar weapon, shot him dead. So when people see these things, you can't come and tell people, oh, things are okay. Everywhere you have depressed communities, everywhere and all of that. That is no solution to this problem. And this thing is worrying. When we look, and we're going to talk about Mr. Sam's case in a while ago, because when you look at how Mr. Sam was killed, the man sit down at a bar having a drink with his friends. And according to the report, two men fighting across the road, somehow bullet rang out, Sam fall along, Sam is dead. So you can't just sit back. This thing is very, very worrying. And then, to me, a very worrying part as well is that you're not hearing anything from the man who sits in the chair. You're not hearing anything from the government, the president. You're not hearing anything from the Minister of Home Affairs. They have National Security Advisor and all of that. And Stabrook News in the same editorial made the point, the last paragraph, you must read this thing. The last paragraph, they said, at the beginning of this year, at the beginning of 2023, following a spate of murders, President Irfan Ali said he was awaiting a full report from the police concerning the execution-style killing that had taken place since the start of this year. And then they go on to say nothing more has been heard from him on that subject. So 8 months down the road, nothing more. And that is it. That is it. They come out and they make statements and nothing happens